Good evening and welcome to the EDA meeting for Monday, December 17, 2018. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Please stand and join me at the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening. We have a nice crowd here tonight, so that's kind of nice. You did hear me right. We're calling the EDA meeting together, or to order first tonight. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to roll into our council meeting just because of some logistics of the meeting tonight. So we are going to start with that. And with that, Nate, will you call roll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Schultz.
Here.
Commissioner Bowe.
Here.
Commissioner Wong. Here. Commissioner Geisler.
Here.
President Winchell.
Here. Next, we'll move to adopting the agenda. Corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Geisler.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Bowe to adopt the agenda. Again, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us into item number 4, approving the previous meeting minutes. Again, corrections or additions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the EDA minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Schultz.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Geisler to approve the minutes. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us on to item number 5, discussion items. Item A is adopt resolution EDA 2018-14, approving the 2019 EDA budget and approving assess 2018 payable 2019 EDA property tax levy.
That was a mouthful.
There, what I just said.
Is that the first one?
Got it as the third. We can do it in any order you want.
You want me to move it?
Listed as
That's what I have.
I've got C on mine.
Mine's C2.
Oh,
Okay.
on my paper copy, it's
Yeah.
that. But I can go the other way
No,
if
no,
you
that's
want.
fine. That's fine.
You've
I'll
already
force
gone
it.
through that big long deal.
Yeah, yeah, kind of explains already. Might as well keep
Let's
rolling.
go with,
I'm just pulling it up.
Oh, yeah, it is different on
Yep.
the electronic, but that's what I got paper. I'm just going by paper, sorry.
All right.
I didn't wake you up or anything, did I?
You sort of scared me. I thought I missed something.
What?
Slept through the first two or what?
President Commissioners, one of the items that we do have to do tonight in the EDA and then also in the council is to establish our tax levy for next year. As you are aware, the EDA does establish its own tax levy. When we look at the tax impact to an average household, we actually look at both the EDA and the city council together. But when we actually establish the levy, we have to pull out the EDA levy individually. You will see that the EDA levy for taxes, or its assessed values 2008, taxes payable 2019, does represent a 4.9% increase. So for the EDA tax levy, it's the we use the two components of the policy that we have. One is for new growth, the other one is for inflation. The part that we don't include in the EDA that we do with the general fund levy is the additional for the community service officer or the code compliance division, because that doesn't impact the EDA. So we just do inflation and cost of living, which is at 4.9%. That nets out a total for the 2019 EDA or HRA property tax levy of $498,843, and staff is recommending approval of this tax levy.
Okay. Discussion. Again, we have been discussing these budgets and been through them at quite length, so we're just not hurrying through these. So I just don't want you to think that we're just kind of flying through these things. But we have been through this process for months already, so.
It's probably important to point out, we did have the truth and taxation hearing at the last meeting.
At the last meeting, right?
Yep.
So.
And we did not receive any public feedback after that.
Didn't get anything either?
No.
Okay. We didn't have anybody at that meeting, truth and taxation, so. All right. If there's no discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve it.
Motion by Councilmember Geisler, Commissioner, sorry.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schultz. Again, adopting EDA 2018-14, approving the EDA budget for 2019. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to item B, authorizing executive director to sign a letter of intent with DDK Construction to buy approximately 3.9 acres of land at Chaska Boulevard and Fire Lane.
President, Commissioners, the item in front of you tonight is having to deal with the last portion of the parcel of the old Chaska Building Center site. As you're aware, we had 3 parcels down there. First one was redeveloped back probably about 6 years ago now. It has a Chaska Mill Workshop. The second one is actually under construction right now. And Formacoat, a medical device company, is actually building there now. And the third one that Nate's presenting here tonight is a letter of intent to move forward with sort of a multi-use project that would include some office condo buildings as well as an industrial building on the remainder of the site. So I'll turn it over to Nate. If this project were to move forward, it would actually finish up that project down on that site.
All right, President, Commissioners, as Matt introduced, we've got a letter of intent that we've been working on with DDK Construction. They are proposing to do a project that would be for the final approximately 3.9 acres of property that's at the former building center site. So this is the piece that's on the corner of Chaska Boulevard and Fire Lane. What they're proposing is a mixed-use project. It'd be approximately 12,000 square feet total of office condo space. So that's what's displayed in the front portion of the redevelopment, which would allow for 8, potentially up to 8 different occupants of those buildings. It is split up into 3 separate buildings. Then on the back portion, they're proposing to do approximately 20,000 square feet of multi-tenant or multi-user industrial space. You see that there's proposal to have approximately 3 bays on the back side, and the space could be split up, or if you're sharing bays, you could have ultimately up to 6 different users in that space. It could also be space that's combined if a user wants more. So with that, you'd have up to 14 users total between the office condo space and the 6 industrial users in the back. It's just guessing out, even if it were only at 3 jobs per user, you could have up to 42 jobs with that pretty conservative number there. So in comparison, you've got Formacoat neighboring, aiming to grow up to 30 jobs at that job or at that project. So definitely competing as far as the number of jobs that could be created on the site there. As a part of the purchase or the letter of intent, we would be using this to format what the purchase agreement would look like. Be building the purchase agreement around the letter of intent that I'm sharing with you tonight. We've formatted this to be very similar to the Formacoat project that was approved earlier this year and is moving forward right now. So for what we've done is for the office condo buildings, it'd be a total purchase price for that property of $90,492, which is $1.50 per square foot. That's the same purchase price that we used for the Formacoat project. They would be looking to purchase that on or before June 1st of 2019. They would complete the first office condo building by December 1st of 2019, and the other 2 office condo buildings by December 1st of 2020. And that is an up to number also. They've talked about if the market is doing well, they may push to try to complete both buildings at a tighter time frame. On the industrial building, this would be a purchase option, which would have a closing date no later than September 1st of 2019, and completion of construction no later than November 15th of 2020, with a purchase price of $169,700. Again, that's that $150 per square foot number that we used for Formacoat and for the office condos in the front. With this being a purchase option, what we would do is that allows us to continue to market that portion of the property. If we were to get a user in who can do a project at a quicker timeline and has, displayed their ability to do that, we would have an opportunity to communicate that with DDK, at which point they would have 2 weeks to exercise their option. And if they chose not to do that, then we would be able to move forward with the other project that's proposing to work at a quicker pace. So that's the flexibility that the agreement allows us to have with that option in there. DDK would enter into a minimum assessment agreement. There would be TIF, TIF that's on the site already. They'd be able to take advantage of those funds, which is really what brings that purchase price down to the $1.50 per square foot. We would also then be waiving development fees, which is what the TIF proceeds would go to offset that as well. That's the same thing that we did for Formicote. And then the city would contribute $5,000 to DDK's responsibility to complete the plat, which is the same thing that the same agreement that we have with Formicote for that project. So really what we did was use that template, apply it to DDK. So with that's the project. I guess I'd entertain any questions, but staff is recommending that we approve this letter of intent. This would be a good way to finish off the project in line with the goals that we've had for this site, which is to do a mix of office and industrial, and producing jobs that are there to support the downtown and increase the downtown's daytime population in that way. So we believe that this is a project that fits the goals for the site. It'd be a good way to finish it off. And the letter of intent, by entering into that, really sets the boundaries and the guidelines for how we're going to proceed with that purchase agreement, which would then be brought back to you when that's final. Any questions? Yeah, Greg?
With that time lag, do we continue to have that property on the market and continue to market it, or is it, to what extent does it still continue to be available for others in the meantime?
Yeah, for that portion in the back, the industrial portion, that's where we've got that option in place that we can continue to market it. And if we do get a group in that's able to pull off a project in a quicker time frame, we could work with them to do that. So DDK would have the first option to match that offer, and if they decide that they're not able to do that, we'd be able to go with the other developer. That's for the back portion, the industrial piece. Okay. The office condo piece in the front, DDK's intent is to move forward and build that in short order. So we wouldn't be looking to have an option there.
Very good, thank you.
Is that,
Go ahead.
I was kind of going off that question, because I was thinking the same thing with a June close. Wouldn't that, does that seem long, or is that pretty normal?
I think that's going to be a pretty good pace for them. They need to go through the planning process and get approvals before we're willing to close on the site, because we want to make sure that the developers they've got a project that they're going to actuate on before we've sold and lost control. So they need to get through that process. You'll see their concept plan come in front of you in January, and that's at best a 3-month process there. So that'll line up for a June closing.
Because that was kind of my next thing. This is just a letter of intent. We still got to go through the whole process.
That's right. Yep.
Before we really go.
And keep in mind too that it's on or before June. So if the planning process goes fast and we're feeling confident with how that's going, it could be a sooner closing date even, but that feels pretty aggressive.
So if this project didn't pan out the way it is, and like another developer came through, would they effectively start this process from scratch? Or would anything that we approve today be part of what's on that parcel?
No, nothing that we're approving today is an entitlement or anything like that for what could be built on the parcel itself. The EDA is really looking at the letter of intent, which would be the terms of a purchase agreement. And even that, there's negotiation that happens after the letter of intent. So think of this sort of as the concept plan for the purchase agreement with the EDA.
The planning process, though, will really dictate what direction the development actually goes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Geisler, did you?
Yeah, did they mention if they have any tenants in mind already that they're sort of going to work this around?
I know they're talking to a number of groups, but none that they've been ready to release names.
Divulge it? Okay. All right.
And that first building is just two units, and then the other 2 are 3s, huh?
That's right. So 2 in this building, 3 and 3 is the concept right now. But again, this has got to go through the planning process. and they haven't even received concept approval yet. So there was a concept that was approved for the site, but that was really for an industrial site, industrial building that would have taken up the whole piece here. Since we're deviating from that, they're gonna have to go through concept, preliminary, and final with the planning process.
Right. Any other questions?
Did we think about if they're unable to even continue with lots 1, 2, and 3? If they're not able to complete even that aspect of the project, is there any kind of conditions that safety net the city on how that
That's a
gets
good
moved
question. I
forward?
think that's something that we can look at as we're going into the purchase agreement.
So when you say lots 1, 2, and 3, are you talking about
Talking about these.
to go
Across the
forward with
front,
those?
yeah, so we
So
kind
one
of
of
have
the-
some protection in place for lot 4 in case they're delayed in acting, or if we get something in advance, but what about lots 1, 2, and 3?
Well, the biggest protection for us, and this is part of the details of the purchase agreement, is putting in place the minimum tax increment and minimum assessment agreement, which really sets a minimum valuation for tax purposes, whether they build or not. So what that does is it creates an economic incentive for them to move forward and actually build something. Because they end up having to pay taxes on the property as if it was developed. So it creates an economic incentive for them to move forward.
All right.
Any others? All right, no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve or authorize the executive director to sign a letter of intent with DDK Construction.
I will second that, Mr. President.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Schultz, second by Commissioner Bowe, again, and that's authorizing the executive director to sign a letter of intent. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to item C, authorize the executive director to sign a letter of intent with Talle Associates, Inc. to purchase and redevelopment the Ernst House Property at 211 and 217 Walnut Street.
Presidents, Commissioners, one of the things Kevin and I were wondering is why we had to wait till the end of the year until Nate started working, but no.
We did
Year-end
notice.
reviews coming up?
Yeah.
You're too kind.
So the item in front of you tonight is actually for the old Ernst House and S House properties, which are down on Walnut Street. If you remember, the Ernst House was moved from over where it was in the Fireman's Park, or on the edge of the Fireman's Park project, when that was completed. And the S House was one that was next door, which caught on fire several years ago. We tried to go through a couple grant processes to save that, and ultimately we're not able to get the funds to do that. After we got permission from the state to demolish that home, we've been out marketing this to different development groups to come up with a concept to be able to bring back. And Nate will talk about really the goals or objectives that we're really trying to accomplish here, which really sort of outline the proposal that we're bringing back to you tonight. We are excited about this group that's in front of us. We think they can do a very quality project down there, especially with this historic house, and be able to make it into something that not only reuses a home, but also creates some value by making some really nice apartment units in downtown. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nate. This is the concept to the purchase agreement. I guess that's what we're calling the letters of intent now. But he can go through the letter. We do have this item back at the council meeting tonight too for the actual planning concept. So.
Thanks, Matt. President, council members, to present the second thing I've done all year. So this is a letter of intent, again, from Talle Associates. This is a group that's been taking a pretty close look at this site. And you may recall, and it was back in March of this year, that the Chaska EDA, so you all, authorized us to enter into a listing agreement. And with Greg Anderson of Remax at that time, with a concept for the property that would include, some townhomes or some sort of a quad or something like that, next to and complementary to the Ernst House. And at that time, we set a number of goals. There were some costs that have been sunk into this site already by moving the Ernst House from where it formerly sat at Fireman's Park, and that was approximately $415,000 to do that, an additional $20,000 demolish the S house after that burned. So one of the goals is to recover the costs through this project by creating a redevelopment TIF. Other goals that were set was to preserve the historic nature of the Ernst House and the Walnut Street district, to maximize the investment into the site to create positive value addition to downtown commercial district. We're talking about bringing in folks that have disposable income that can contribute to the business community downtown by living nearby. Keeping the character of the Walnut Street Historic District. And we also talked about preserving parking options for the back portion of the property as we continue to develop the Paseo concept that is planned to go through there. So this project is, we believe, in line with the goals that were set on the onset. And I'll kind of walk you through. I don't want to go too far into detail here because this will be presented to you as the city council in a concept plan. So we'll get into more detail there. But just to give you a general idea, the concept here is that we've got the Ernst House in this location, which would be an upper and a lower apartment, the lower being a 1-bedroom and the upper being a 2-bedroom. All of them approximately, I think it's 1,200 square feet. Then you've got 3 townhome style units that would be for rent on the former S House site, each of them about 1,200 square feet again. And then the back, the plan is to have covered parking, 1 stall for each unit, and then above that, having on each side what would be called a carriage home, and those are approximately the same size as the townhomes. So you end up with 7 total units on the site, in addition to some surface parking here that could serve the property itself. And what we're thinking for public parking is to look on the other side of the alley and opportunities that could exist there to do some additional expansion of public parking to complement what exists here today. So that is the concept for the layout of the site. I'll put up here one of the concepts for how it could look in the end. So you've got the Ernst House as it currently exists, the idea being to renovate that and preserve the exterior of the site as close to historical accuracy as possible. And then the new townhomes here, you've got porches on it, and in a way that complements what exists today with the Ernst House. So what we're talking about with the letter of intent and sketching out what would be in the purchase agreement is that the city would agree to establish a TIF district, a redevelopment TIF district for the parcels included in the project. We agree to contribute to development costs. So that would include the geotechnical work, survey work, environmental assessment, development fees, and pursuit of historic preservation tax credits. So that's another addition that we're trying to get to this project, which would help with conserving the Ernst House and preserving that. The city would agree to make the storefront improvement loan program available in amount up to $100,000, which would be repaid by the developer over the term of the loan.
How do we use the storefront loan when it's not a business?
Sorry?
How do we use the storefront loan? Wasn't that designed for businesses?
It is designed for businesses. It is also designed to help with preserving the historic nature of downtown.
Okay.
So those are the intents of it.
Well, and keep in mind that this is a business too with apartments.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess I look at it as just a different
Yeah.
kind of business. so.
We have used it on other residential businesses in the downtown, especially when it's to preserve historic properties. It's our own internal fund, so we can really set that policy the way we want to use it.
The developer agrees to purchase the site for $20,000, and the developer needs to successfully complete the planning process in a way that achieves the historic preservation goals for this site. So those are those terms. When we look at how the project revenue and costs would lay out, there's a total expense accounting for the move of the Ernst House, the demolition of the S House, and the development costs that we're agreeing to assist with of approximately $509,000. The revenue from the TIF, the storefront improvement loan, and the sale of the home brings us to $470,000. So we are saying that we know there's a gap there right now. What we're going to look at is working with the developer on some options. So that could include increasing the purchase price. It could include forgiving a portion of development fees. It could include the impact of the historic preservation tax credits as that process unfolds and we understand what the value of that would be better. So there are options there. What we do want to do, though, is enter into a letter of intent so that the developer understands that we're looking to work towards a solution. And they're looking to continue to move this project forward with the interest of breaking ground next year. So they want to know that we're going to continue to work on these things, that we're interested in pursuing the project, so that they have confidence going through the planning process as well. From staff's perspective, right now we have the $415,000 and the $20,000 of sunk cost in the project, and this does allow us to recapture a significant portion of that with a project that does meet the goals that we had stated on the onset for this project. So with that, we are recommending that that you authorize staff to enter into the letter of intent and then proceed with working on the purchase agreement. I guess I'd open it up to any questions from you.
I mean, really, both of these projects are big projects that have loomed over us for years. To see these both come forward, even though, like I say, it's a long ways to go. These are letter of intents, but it's the idea of getting these moving. I think is just a huge positive in projects that have been sitting there for a while. So I'm kind of excited to see this. It looks like it'll be a nice little project there. So
I would absolutely agree. This is, I acknowledge the fact that there's still some gap and some work to do, obviously, and but the potential of what I see in front of me really poses, I believe, a nice addition to downtown and truly benefit into the area.
It's very complimentary downtown. It looks sharp. I like it.
I really think it's going to make that Ernst House look really nice.
yeah,
Yep.
just
Yep.
It's
it
going to make it
needs.
stand out even more.
Accomplish.
Ties it all together very well and kind of serves that function of closing that gap.
It's been, it's been tough to find a developer, hasn't it, to buy into this kind of a concept.
Yeah, we've had a number of folks come and talk to us about the site and take a look at it, but it is a challenging site. Anytime you've got a small site, it's challenging, and then you add a historic preservation project on top of it, it becomes a little bit more challenging. So we've been very impressed with the level of work that the developers already put into it to explore the site and come up with, some real nice ideas about how they could proceed.
I'll put in a little plug too. The architect has also been the architect of the Simmons Livery
I was
down
gonna say,
here.
I remember.
And then
she told me
also
that.
the old
The
Klein
Klein.
Mansion.
Climate change.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we've been very impressed with his work, so that's, so they've done a very nice job.
Especially with the preservation piece. of it.
Yes.
I mean, So
Yep.
both those two sites were huge in that. I ran into them and they told me that they were part of that. I was just gonna mention that too. So, Cool, cool. Right, any other questions for Nate?
Mike was gonna say something.
If not, I would entertain again, this is a motion for a letter of intent only at this point, to move forward from there.
Yep, I'll move to authorize the executive director to sign a letter of intent with Talle Associates to purchase and redevelop the Ernst property.
I'd be happy to second that.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Long and a second by Commissioner Geisler to authorize the letter of intent with Talle. So, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to other business. Anyone?
Lots of things moving forward. It's very exciting.
Projects that have been looming for a long time.
Absolutely. It's nice to see things starting to drop into place.
Can't ask about hotspot anymore. We can't ask about a lot of half the sites.
You're not gonna be able to ask about anything
You
anymore.
can't ask about anything. All we can do now is move into the next meeting.
Try by and look.
Well, just for the sake of discussion, an update on the old Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Well,
Just had to do that.
That's right.
What, KFC closed?
The last bar.
well, now that we have moved forward with approving the concept for City Square West, so now that allows us to move forward confidently in developing a purchase agreement with the City Square Strip Mall
Okay.
property, and part of that is we're working with China Pagoda on the KFC site. So that allows us to progress forward now. It was really, that was an important step in that process.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
All right, anyone else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to
To
adjourn.
adjourn, so moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bowe, second by Commissioner Wang to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Pose same sign. We are adjourned. Mike,